Let's talk a little bit about the magnet lab. So I have the kids gather 10 data points. Almost always the strength of the magnetic field is the dependent variable, and then they have to decide what the independent variable is. So in this case, they can actually change the distance to the Hall effect probe. Hopefully the Hall effect probe is actually pointed. They change the distance, and they can use the computer to gather. I usually have them gather 100 data points and then just do statistics on it in Logger Pro, and that gives them a max and a min and a mean. But anyway, so this is one possibility. Okay. Another possibility is that they can set up. This is a coil here, right? Okay, and they could move this thing, right? They could change the distance. They could keep it at a certain distance and change the current. And I have them all get their very own data. So, there it is, right? Is that nice and warm? It's the only warmth in this room. All right. So they could do that. Ooh, check this out. I definitely didn't drill a hole in the table to do this. Okay, I did drill a hole in the table to do this. There's a thumbtack underneath that Hall effect probe, and the thumbtack is it sort of pivots around that. So this is, the Hall effect probes are sensitive to angle, right? So this is one way to get that. This is kind of experimental. I just set up a coil on there, and there's a steel bar there, so they could move this along the steel bar, keep the current the same. They could change the current. They could move this away from that. All these variables that you could have. And then usually I set up one here with just magnetic force. Get a permanent magnet, right? Put a permanent magnet on here, and then get one that repels it. And then by moving the little bars here, they can measure the force that it's exerting by balancing the scale. And they could do force versus distance, which is kind of cool. And then just be careful. I always have to tell the kids, don't go above 5 amps with these coils. Here's one. This is essentially like a current carrying wire, and so they could move this like that, right? And that should give us 1 over R stuff for that. They could also just change the current, which is kind of boring, right? Okay. Anyway, they could do the same thing here, right? They could put a probe and they could go away from it. They could keep the current the same and change the distance, or they could change the distance. They could change the current and keep the distance the same. They could move this around. Anyway, that's the hard-hitting magnet lab.